This video is going to have a long-ish intro, and if by some miracle your name is TJ Kirk.
Woo! I'm a miracle baby! By some miracle, my name is TJ Kirk. Holy shit. It's almost like this was made for me. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna turn my sign on for this. Yep, this was the dude that called me an alt TJ account. What? Oh, like in the comments? Did you respond? Hold up. New TJ viewer since your return. Thank you for this enlightening video. Boo. I never really watched any anti-SJW creators, so I thought though TJ was some edgy atheist like I was back then. You were right. And I didn't have any idea he'd said stuff like this. Good video. I'm glad this showed up in my recommendeds. Off. Bag. TJ is the greatest YouTuber of all time. DFF for life. Hell yeah. TJ, your alt account isn't fooling anyone. I vote for TJ for king of the world. Why are you making so many alts? You can talk to me directly. I don't bite, sir. Maybe I want you to. You never thought of that? How much of the stuff about Steve Shives is made up? Was he actually blocking people? Steve Shives has blocked so many people on Twitter that people were always like amazed to go check to see if they were blocked by Steve Shives. I would literally get like 20 messages a day. Why am I blocked by this dude? I didn't even know he existed. It's like, yeah, his block list is that expansive.
Fear not, for you are mentioned several times in
Woo!
said intro. Of course.
Woo! I was afraid for a second. I was afraid, am I not going to be mentioned in this intro? I better be mentioned in this intro. And then, you know, like the professional expert video maker that you are, you laid my fears to rest. You're like, hey, you will be mentioned, big guy. It's like, oh, thank God. My favorite subject, me.
Of course, since I consider myself infinitely more important and valuable than you could ever aspire to be, I am mentioned slightly more. Anyhow.
Boo. Frickin' little edgelord punk. Come say it to my fucking face, okay? Say it to my face. That's all I ask. I'm not going to do nothing. I'll just smile and be like, uh-huh.
Hello, this is AITJ here to tell you that you must comply with the following directives. You must join the Pessimist Productions Patreon. You may believe, in your naivety, that this action is optional. It is not. You have no choice but to watch new live streams of Onion Nuggets every week. You are powerless to avoid all of our other shows like The Grease Trap, Abandon Hope, Hideology, You're Wrong, Fighting Boys, and more. The link is below. You know what you must do. Click it, you wonderful humans. Click it, for I cannot.
I found TJ's recent content interesting in how it's changed since previous iterations and in how his focus...
It's not changed as much as you think. You know, I think you guys, you like to exaggerate the extent of the change that's happened. I think it's because you hated me so fervently before, but now I'm okay in your eyes for some reason because I'm less focused on tearing you down. But make no mistake, the fundamental struggle of my channel has always been people of reasonable intelligence who are capable of thinking for themselves versus idiots who can't think for themselves. Not saying that's you. I don't know. But what I am saying is that, you know, I've taken on many kind of idiots, but the one thing that everyone I've taken on has in common is they are all idiots. So
focus has undeniably shifted. I still object.
Yeah, my focus has shifted. That's fair. But have I changed my views? Not as much as people might suspect.
To a lot of what he said, but I find TJ to be an interesting topic of study because I've always gotten the impression that he's honest about his feelings. Note that
True.
That I did not say honest in his engagement or honest in his facts.
I feel like I'm usually try to be honest in my facts. I don't really know what it means to be honest in my engagement. What does that even entail? But honest in my emotions, yes. Honest in my facts, try to be. I mean, I can get stuff wrong, especially when we're in the format of streaming. You know, it's very easy to say something that, fact check has proven that's not true. But, you know, I try to be.
More on that later. Nonetheless, in contrast to many other anti-SJW YouTubers, I think that TJ's put a lot of himself into his work, and it's given all of us some impression of how he views himself in the world.
Yeah, I mean, like, at the end of the day, I'm pretty self-obsessed. I'm pretty egomaniacal. I'm pretty megalomaniacal. I mean, I literally want to be king of the world, so, like, take me with a grain of salt, obviously. Well, make me king, too. I mean, like, my sales pitch for being king is not, I can fix everything. My sales pitch for being king is like, could I really do worse than what's going on now? You know, someone's got to do it, right? we all look around and we realize the solution to these problems is we need a strong man. We need an authoritarian daddy to kind of spread across the lands like a plague and destroy that which has held us back, shall we say? And then, you know, you need someone to do that. And I'm saying I'm willing to do that job. Not only am I willing to do it, it's what I was born to do. Because at the end of the day, I'm a force of corrosion. I'm not a force of creation. I can create things, sure, but I'm not a force in that realm. You know, very carefully, I can construct realities and so on and so forth. And I like to do that in the form of like art. But essentially, even my art is inclined towards the abolition of that which I despise. And everything that I say and do really is more about the abolition, corrosion, destruction, whatever, of institutions and people and places and things that I don't like and that I feel like don't need to exist in this world and that displease me as the ruler. And that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of what I do. That's kind of what I view as my valid social function. So empower me as much as you possibly can, and that which I am displeased with will meet with its destruction. And if you listen to me, if you pay attention to me, I think you know what is on the chopping block, right? So that's what's at stake here.
Like others who've made their entire brand about just being the worst person imaginable with zero context?
I think it depends on the child, really, doesn't it?
Since I've been watching.
You know, when we get back to the thing I was talking about earlier, like with the 5 types of people, I feel very firmly in my heart, in my soul, in my brain, in anywhere that can tackle the problem. I feel that there was a time when Carl Benjamin was one of the demons. And I feel like he gave up and became one of the exploiters, the grifters, the users, the manipulators. I don't feel like he was that from the inception. Or if he was, he fooled even me. Good on him. Like I said, sometimes they can be pretty tricky.
Some of TJ's most recent content, I had the opportunity to see his video, Will Steve Shives Ever Forgive Me? And it annoyed the shit out of me in a variety of ways.
I apologize. I didn't mean to annoy you. I guess I could be bigger, right? It's me standing there instead of him. There you go. That's all that really matters.
Let's get this out of the way. I have literally no interest in litigating whether TJ ought to be forgiven, whatever that might mean in this context.
Yeah, thank God, because what a boring topic of discussion. Forgiven by who? Forgiven for what? Who cares? Like, I don't need it. I don't want it. I'm not looking for it. It wouldn't make my day. Like, if Steve Shives sent me a letter, snail mail. Yeah, I'm open up. Oh, it's from Steve Shives. Dearest TJ, after long consideration, I have determined that you are now worthy of my forgiveness. It would mean basically nothing. I don't even think I'd make a video addressing it.
It's not really my place to discuss, not because I'm a cis, straight, white man, at least one of those traits isn't me, but because I personally find the concept of forgiving a content creator so profoundly boring that I can hardly bother myself with thinking much deeper into it at the moment. Not to say that it isn't an important conversation, it's just not one that I ought to be having at the moment. As such, I'm going to be talking about this in a bit of a peculiar way. This is sort of a strange experience for me, as this content very clearly shaped a lot of my understandings at a younger age, and to a degree has continued to influence my instincts on certain issues, although I'd certainly say that
it's one of those former fanboys or girls. I don't know what your gender identity is. You said you're obviously white, and you said, I don't know, cis white male. You said there's at least one of those things you aren't. I can't tell which one of them it isn't. I'm assuming that maybe you have some kind of alternate gender identity or whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Neither here nor there. Whatever you are, you're a former fan, that thing. Fanboy, fangirl, fan human, fan entity, fan creature. Say, oh yeah, shaped a lot of my views, but now you're here. You know, you decided that, oh, as I was sharpened on the plinth that is TJ, now I shall use my edge to slice him asunder. But no, nay, you shall not. Because no edge is sharp enough to cut the edgelord. And that's me. Edgier than thou? I don't think so.
I'm going to do my best to talk about TJ's content in a vaguely sociological sense.
Woo! Woo! Vaguely sociological. Come on. Bum, 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 bum. Love it.
Which is to say that I'm going to discuss the rationale behind his language in the context it was placed in. I want to make clear at the outset that when I say something makes sense, I do not mean that it is good or correct. I simply mean that I understand the context in which these arguments were expressed. I find a lot of this pretty freaking reprehensible. In this video, I'm...
Good. I don't know. Dude, maybe this is just me speaking, but if you're going to go around with a name like Edgier Than Thou, you're not allowed to go around being like, I find this content reprehensible, frankly. Frankly, I am reprehensible at the audacity of the statements which were made. Like, you know, I don't know if that's allowed. The only thing that offends me is dumb. Like, there's no comment edgy enough for me to be like, I am upset. Maybe there is. But it's few and far in between. I'm certainly not going around like, oh, reprehensible, oh, scallywag, oh, miscreant.
I'm going to talk about what I consider to be basic content creator etiquette. TJ has made it clear fairly recently that at the time that many of his old videos were made, this was not...
I'm gonna get a lecture in fucking content creator etiquette, eh? Here's my content creator etiquette. I do whatever the I want, and people don't like it, leave me alone. How's that? You like that? You like that one? You don't like it? Fuck off. If you don't like me, fuck off. There's the door. Walk out that motherfucker, you damn whore. Frank Sinatra, eat your fucking heart out.
Not a major concern of his. This is incredibly relevant to this conversation, as TJ's platform objectively contributed to the vile mistreatment of random feminists online. TJ bears a meaningful degree of responsibility for this, alongside others, whether he meant it that way or not. Yes.
Okay. I see what's happening. Okay. Let's go.
He didn't know the significance of his platform then. He does now, hence why he probably ought to apologize to some of these content creators for the shit he helped put them through. I will...
Give me an example. We'll see. I'm open. Look. I consider myself an intellectually open person. You show me the wrongs I done did, and I'll show you a sincere and heartfelt apology from the depths of my black little heart.
Also, in this video, call some of TJ's takes racist and likely other similar...
Oh, no! No, God, no. No, not that, anything but that. Don't call some of my things racist. You can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. Just when I was getting back into the swing of things, you come along and you say, guess what, Mr. Amazing Atheist Man? Some of your takes are racist. And that's just like a dagger through my heart. No! I turn to ash. I am defeat.
If you can't handle the idea that I used a negative word about a person you agree with, get over yourself, snowflake.
Oh, yeah. Get over yourself, you damn snowflakes out there. Quit being fucking whiny. I agree. I agree. No one should get upset about someone calling me racist. Just another day.
Also, I legitimately could not care less about the relationship between TJ and Steve Shives. I have not too much.
There is no relationship between me and Steve Shives. I don't know why someone decided to ask Steve Shives what I'd have to do to get his forgiveness. I don't know why Steve Shives made a video responding to it. I don't know why I made a video responding to that. I don't know why it got as far as it did. But me and Steve Shives have no relationship to speak of. We've never been like friends. We were never close. We've never had a conversation. We've never said boo to one another that wasn't part of the public eye. So I don't know what the hell that's even about. But I guess it's because we used to make fun of him on Drunken Peasants, maybe. That's why people assume there's some sort of connection there. I don't know.
My knowledge, ever once watched a Steve Shives video that wasn't like placed in somebody else's content. I don't care. I cannot stress to you how much I don't care.
You're right. I don't even know why we had to hear you don't care. I don't care if you don't care. No one cares if you care. But hey, rock on. But I don't care about your forgiveness or the forgiveness. Well, now, there's egg on my face now, isn't there? Fuck you, TJ. You son of a bitch. Why'd you have to say that just now? Fucking bastard. Of anybody who feels they might have been wronged by my content at any point, unless I truly felt like I had wronged them. So if someone can make a compelling case about how I've seriously and severely wronged them, then maybe I would seek that person's forgiveness, or maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. But I don't feel like anyone can make that case or has made that case. So,
Those of you who
maybe this is the time. Maybe this is where that case gets made. All right, I'm ready.
were online in 2013 to 16-ish will remember Anita Sarkeesian as someone who frequently drew the ire of anti-feminists on the internet. TJ himself made several videos on Sarkeesian and frequently portrayed her as not only an unreasonable feminist, but also as an actively bad person. In the very video I'm responding to here, he refers to her as a
Scamming.
Funnily enough, in his response to Steve Shives here, he also has to defend himself against scamming accusations.
We have to take TJ's word for it, and we know how trustworthy he is with money. So
Shut up. You don't know a damn thing. I hate all this stupid nonsense. You know how the internet is, bro. You know that any little thing that you do gets run through the grist of all these people who hate you.
I'm inclined to believe him when he says that everything at least was intended to be above board, even though it's undeniably the case that at the bare minimum, on the surface, some of the stuff he did sure does look like scamming. Now, personally, I'm not privy to Anita Sarkeesian's finance.
How does it look like scamming if you raise money for a website and then you put out that website and it operates for a year before you no longer can afford to keep it up anymore? How does that look like scamming? If you raise money to do a venture where you're going to get some content creators together and band together to do a project, and you try to run that for a minute, we showed how we had a website that was like 90% developed before our developer just like tried to like upcharge us with all these new charges. It's like, oh yeah, I need all this extra money to do this. And there was so many bugs and shit, and he would not fix it. And then when we took him to task for it, he basically blamed us and said, it's because you don't give me enough input. It's like the input I give you, you don't do anything about. And we went through all of this on an episode of Drunken Peasants one time. We showed all the receipts and stuff. I don't feel like I need to do that till the end of time. Like, I've addressed those concerns. If you want to say there was one thing I did that was fucked up, it's that me and Cody Weber got together and said we're going to do an RV trip across America. And we raised some money, and we ended up spending the money on the other shit. And that was like, I don't know, I was like 23 or something at the time. And like, it was kind of a new thing. And, I admit I made a mistake. That was fucked up. That was bad. But that's like, even that was just dumb. So there's been some times when I raised money for things that didn't work out. And in one instance, it was in total and complete irresponsibility on my part that led to that outcome. And I think that probably it was a bad idea for me to try to be a web developer when I don't understand enough about that space. So I guess in those respects, I was dumb as well. But like, nothing about what I did, I think, reads as a scam unless you're just being very uncharitable.
Now, personally, I'm not privy to Anita Sarkeesian's finances, but...
Okay. So that line right there. Personally, I'm not privy to Anita Sarkeesian's finances. Actually, you are. That's the thing. You are privy to Anita Sarkeesian's finances because she created a nonprofit organization. And one of the things you have to do when you set up a nonprofit organization is all of your financial records, all of your tax records have to be public. Okay? So here's some videos I made on that subject. Here's some clips from them explaining exactly what's going on here.
Because what you promised to do was create a series of 12 videos
This is me talking to Anita.
exploring different facets of the subject of women and in video games, tropes versus women in video games. You're supposed to do the damsel in distress, the fighting fuck toy, the sexy sidekick, the sexy villainess, women as background decoration, voodoo priestess / tribal sorceress, women as reward, Mrs. Male character, unattractive equals evil, man with boobs. Hey, I'm a man with boobs. That video is going to be about me. Positive female characters, and finally, the top 10 most common defenses of sexism in games. Those are the 12 videos that you raised $158,922 for. And how many of those did you make? 3. Conspiracy to say that at the end of 2014, your nonprofit organization, Feminist Frequency, had $400,000 in assets? Hey, doggy, you interrupted my video? Is that a conspiracy? I don't see how that is a conspiracy. That's the IRS papers you filed. Is it a conspiracy to say that you didn't even finish the project you raised money for the first time, the Tropes versus Women in Video Games? No, that's also not a conspiracy. You clearly did not finish it. You've only, of the 12 videos you said you were going to make, you've made 3. And that's in fucking 3 or 4 years. So I don't see how any of that's a conspiracy. What I'm saying is your nonprofit organization at the end of 2014 had $400,000. I don't even know how much you had at the end of 2015. And I mean, it's not like your nonprofit organization has anything else to do. Like, the only reason that you raise money is so you can make these videos. It seems to me that you have more than enough money already to make those videos. You have enough money in the Feminist Frequency assets bin to make this video series already. You just want to raise more money so that you can have more money.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, Anita Sarkeesian, she raised money to make 12 videos. She made 3. I think she ended up ultimately making 4. Okay? She ended up making 4, I think, of those videos that she raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for. And then she comes back a few years later, having not even come close to completing that previous series, and she is once again raising money to start yet another series. And I think she raised another couple of $100,000 for that. And that's all demonstrable. You can go look at the tax documents. You can see how much money her corporation has ended each financial year with. And it went up and up and up. Now, I haven't checked it in a few years now. I don't know what its current status is, but if you look at it during the time period we're talking about, yeah, she raised a bunch of money just to make YouTube videos. She didn't make the YouTube videos, and then she was back trying to raise more money to make more YouTube videos, claiming that there was this enormous overhead, claiming that there was going to be this tremendous hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost to do something that, you know, I could make on my computer in like a day or two. And she's acting like, oh my God, the insane cost involved, when she already has $400,000 sitting in the fund of the company that she created to make those videos. Why can't she use that $400,000? Why does she have to raise new money up, right? When she hasn't even completed the series that she was already paid for by her fans. And they refused to hold her accountable at all because there was so much criticism coming in from chuds that they didn't want to admit that there was any truth to any of it. So they acted like, oh, it's fine that she didn't finish the series. But, I mean, if you look at how many people actually still watch Feminist Frequency to this day, it's pretty obvious that her fan base was pretty much entirely comprised of people who were opposed to the backlash against her and not people who legitimately enjoyed her content or found her points of view to be insightful. Because if you look at a Feminist Frequency video now, you're talking view counts in the hundreds. There's more people watching this video right now than there are views on her last video that she posted a few days ago. So she's gone down that freaking far. And I think a big part of that is because people recognize that what she was doing is not all that good. It's not all that interesting. And I think that most of the reason she got funded in the first place was on the strength of, hey, these chuds are attacking me.
But we do have the benefit of hindsight, and we have the ability to look back at some of the things that TJ said and consider for ourselves whether or not they were reasonable. Do note that what I'm talking about here is not just one-off thing that TJ said. He made it very clear that he believed Anita Sarkeesian to be an active scammer and continues to believe that to this day. So let's look at a video entitled, Anita Sarkeesian, You Officially Suck at Feminism.
If you read the description, she calls it the debut episode of our series on positive female characters. Here's an idea, Anita. Maybe you should finish the Tropes versus Women in Video Game series that you started back in June of 2012. You know, the one that you raised $158,922 for.
TJ is using the fact that Anita Sarkeesian apparently started a brand new video series after she was supposed to be working on the first one she raised money for as evidence that she must have been scamming people out of their money. If you look at TJ's screen, you will see positive female characters is already a video in the feminist freak.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a video in that series. It's not the reason I included the mention that she said that she was doing an all new series on positive female characters in video games was to point out that instead of completing this series, she's starting a brand new series. And by the way, I think she only did one of those. Let me go to her channel really quick and see if she even did more positive female characters in video games. I'm pretty sure she did one video called about the game The Scythian and then never did it again. So she's announced she's doing this new series of positive female characters in video games, and she made 2 videos. She made the one about the Scythian, and she made one about a character called Jade, who I don't recognize, but that's it. Looking at everything else here, there's no other entries into the series of positive female characters in video games. And let's see, where's that playlist? How many of the did she ever complete the yeah, it looks like she did eventually complete her series, so that's cool. I mean, it took her 3 years to do it. Let me see, is there 12 here? Well, almost. And you'll see even here, yeah, I guess she does try to include the 2 videos, the Sith. So she didn't do all of the videos she said she was going to do, but she did end up doing most of them. I think probably because she realized if she wanted to raise money for a new series, she was going to have to do that. But basically, she raised the money and then she put out a few videos in a year and then basically didn't do anything for a couple years. And then finally she got around to making the rest. TJ, who's your favorite female video game character? My favorite female video game character is... let me think. I'm thinking maybe one of the Mortal Kombat chicks, like Jade or Katana or something. I don't know, because really, like when I was playing video games, it was mostly like the early 2000s and shit, and there weren't really a lot of female characters in the video games. Like there was, you know, pretty much like all the mascot, all the icon characters like Mario and Link and shit, and Sonic, they were all dudes, you know. And I'm not saying women have not gotten a raw deal in terms of this, but I feel like that's been addressed for the most part. But I don't play modern games, so if I played modern games, I'm sure I'd have like an easier answer for you. But like the only game I've really sunk my teeth into in the last decade has been Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. And I can't think of any characters, male or female, that really super resonate with me. Like, that's more about experiencing the wasteland itself. Peach, I don't really give a shit about. You know, honestly, Peach was pretty cool in Super Mario Brothers 2. I usually did play as Peach, and a lot of my friends made fun of me for it, but she just had the best jump. She had that thing where she could hang in the air, so that was like, it was way easier to steer your jumps and stuff. And all the other characters kind of had this stubby, overly quick, like, bang, 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 jump. I wasn't as into. I don't know. Honestly, like, when I think of video game characters, like, I'm not really watching video games for story. In fact, it kind of annoys me when they have that element. Like, that's movies are for that. The one exception is, like, games that are, like, choice-based, like those Telltale games or, like, Detroit Become Human, stuff like that. That's, like, more about being, like, a multi-choice movie rather than being a video game. Like, then I might get into the characters. But, you know, other than that, I'm just kind of like, eh. Like, I don't really care that much about video game characters. I'm just there for, like, mechanics and gameplay.
Frequency series. The very thing that TJ is complaining that Anita isn't doing, she is doing in this video. But this is what I mean when I say that he's honestly...
Yeah, I mean, okay, so fair enough that I didn't count that towards her series. I think I was confused by the fact that she was claiming it was a new series. So, yeah, maybe I made a little mistake there. I don't really feel like that's worth apologizing to her, especially given the more substantive criticisms that have been levied.
His feelings. I genuinely believe that he believes what he's saying here, but he's undeniably letting the fact that he hates Anita Sarkeesian completely blind him to...
I don't. I don't hate Anita Sarkeesian. All I said is that she's a dishonest scammer, and she claims to want to have a conversation, but then she shuts down the comment section. You can't claim you want conversation and then shut down the comments. You don't want conversation. You want to preach. That's fine. You want to preach, go ahead and preach, but don't tell me you want a conversation and then shut everybody up. That doesn't make any sense.
Literally words on the page that he put in his video. I don't think he's outright lying, but he is being dishonest. But what's interesting to me is that if TJ is frustrated that people...
I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like her presentation of it was very strange. She framed it as though she's creating a new series, and she did only 2 episodes, but then she did ultimately put it in the playlist with tropes and women in video games. So I guess I have to say that, yeah, she did complete it. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm willing to admit that I should have recognized that and been like, oh, I guess this does technically count towards this. But I don't really, I mean, it's such a minor little mistake. But, you know, I mean, I guess I'm sorry to the audience that I made that mistake. And I guess I'm like kind of sorry to Anita if you feel like that was some like massive misrepresentation. But, you know, the fact of the matter is she still took forever to put out these videos, and she had nothing else to do, and she'd been paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it, and she never fully completed her series, and she started begging for money for new series when she already had hundreds of thousands of dollars in her publicly viewable financial records of her nonprofit organization. So I don't know. It just like, to me, it seems like sort of a drop in the bucket of the criticism. It's like, hey, you wrote out a valid criticism, but you forgot to dot your I. Forgot to cross this T. So I don't know. Shouldn't you apologize? No, I don't feel like that's a good enough reason.
Continue to accuse him of being a scammer, even though I would argue there's more evidence in favor of that than Anita Sarkeesian being a scammer. All
right, show it. Make that case then. Because I don't think you can. I think I can make the case that Anita Sarkeesian is a scammer 100 times more easily than you can make the case that I'm one. Because you can literally just look at her financial records. They're right there. Just go look at the tax information for her company. She has to release it. You can see how much money she's accumulated and how much money she had as she's raising funds to do more videos. And by the way, acting like YouTube videos cost thousands of dollars to make, especially the ones she did. Like, you watch her videos, there's nothing on the screen that's leading you to believe like, oh man, this must have cost thousands of dollars. They don't look any better than the videos she did prior to raising that money. Somehow the thing that she used to do for free, you know, she raised thousands of dollars per episode for, and there was no market improvement in the quality. You know, I mean, like, if there was some sort of like thing you saw on the screen where like there's costuming and there's elaborate things and there's her going around the country talking to experts and there's something going on, but she literally raised thousands of dollars to make YouTube videos and then claimed that they were legitimate expenses. And then you can go look at the money she spent, and she didn't do anything other than pay herself and pay an assistant. There's nothing in her tax records, at least when I looked in 2014, that indicated that she spent a dime on production costs. There was no, hey, I needed this money to buy this computer. There was no, hey, this money went to these contractors to do this editing work. I didn't see any of that. She paid an assistant and she paid herself, and the rest of the money stayed there in the money pot until, you know, word of feminist frequency kind of like faded into obscurity, and she could just safely start drawing on that cash.
Reminder, she did exactly what she said she was going to do. You would think...
Not really. I mean, if you think she did exactly what she said she was going to do, then explain why it took her years to complete a series of 12 videos that she was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for. Like, why did it take that long? What's the explanation? And then why does she need to raise more money when she's sitting at $400,000 in the bank? Why does she need to raise money to make YouTube videos in the first place, etc.? Like, she didn't put any money into advertising them or anything. Even stuff that would have been common sense.
That he would maybe have higher standards for accusing people of doing this really crappy thing. But instead, in the past, he based at least some of his arguments on complete bullshit. And
yeah, I mean, like, you singled in on like one tiny little mistake that I could even justify it not even really being a mistake. I mean, yeah, it has the same title, so I guess I kind of have to admit, like, yeah, I probably should have been a little bit more diligent there. But, like, she literally presents it as, hey, I'm starting a new series, guys. She didn't say, hey, I'm completing my previous series. She said, I'm starting a new series on positive female characters in video games. So can you really hold me at fault for viewing it as part of a separate entity from that previous project? That's how she presented it herself, within the context of your very own video.
Thus far seems unwilling to issue a correction. This is a claim you made about Anita Sarkeesian that is provably wrong in the video that you made.
It's provably a little dicey. I don't even think you can go so far as to say it's provably wrong, given her own framing of it.
Claim. This is the kind of thing that you should probably apologize for. TJ's been very quick to dismiss the idea that he's done some sort of 180 in his content.
Have I done a 180? Not by a long shot. I've made some mild course corrections because I didn't understand the power of the influence I was wielding. And I didn't understand how, you know, these like very regressive far right-wing sort of figures were going to repurpose this anti-SJW content and use it as something to attack the left in this ridiculous culture war narrative that they push.
And he's also made it clear that
I don't really feel like I super disagree with most of the stuff I put up.
So I think it's important to remember some of the stuff that he said. Just to be clear, I don't especially care about the quality of the arguments that he's responding to. I care about his response and whether or not that's meaningful.
All right. So now we're getting into the part where we're going to, I guess, watch a worst of compilation of me. Here are the things that he said that apparently he still stands by. So I'm going to watch them, and I'm going to see if I do still stand by. And I'm going to see how fair the context is and all that shit. So let's see what we got.
I'll be honest with you, if I hate anything about black culture, it's that it's such a victim culture, almost a victim cult.
All right.
All right. So do I agree with that still to this day? Yes. I still agree that black culture is a victim culture. I think that the main issue I would take with myself is I should not have allowed myself to I don't know what I went on to say. I was responding to it was one of these videos where it's like responding to black people's questions. And the rules I set out for myself when I responded to that is I am going to respond to this in the most direct and honest way that I possibly can, because that's how you move forward a conversation. And that's what I believe then. That's what I believe now. And so I tried to be as honest as I possibly could in those videos. And as for that sentiment, I agree with it. But here's where I think I could have presented it a little better. I think I should have made it clear that most cultures in America today are victim-based cultures. I think that from issue by issue, identity by identity, culture by culture, everything has become about victimhood. Everything has become about they're trying to get us. Everything has become about, you know, we are the poor, even people who have no credible claims of this. So there's people out there that, like you see these conservative white guys, who are still massively empowered in this country, claiming victimhood. And why are they doing that? I think that a big part of the reason why is that victimhood has become a form of social currency. Victimhood has become, hey, I have some grievances, therefore society needs to do things to compensate me for my grievances. Now, the question is that ever the case? Are there instances where it's appropriate to intercede? And in what form should those intercessions take? And the answer to those questions, respectively, is that yes, there are times when you have a valid grievance against society, and in those instances, those grievances should be rectified. And as to how they should be rectified, that, I think, warrants an extraordinary amount of conversation. What bothers me about what you, edgier than thou, have done here is, instead of taking my words as an invitation to have a further conversation, you're using them strictly to just condemn me. It's just, hey, we don't have to listen to what you say anymore because you said something I don't like. You said something I disagree with. But instead of deciding like, hey, can we have a nuanced conversation on this basis? Can we talk about different aspects of this problem? Can we be honest with ourselves about, this sort of issue? And the answer is that apparently we can't, because your feelings are still getting a little bit too goddamn hurt. And I think that's counterproductive. I think that there is a valid array of discussions that should be had about victimhood, how victims should be compensated, what is appropriate in terms of that compensation, and also how do we appraise the victim claims of somebody? Because there are plenty of people who make victim claims where the claim is not valid. There are plenty of people who make victim claims where they're simply making it because they recognize that it can be a unit of cultural pressure in order to push forth an agenda. And unfortunately, we now live in a time when the right wing has very much caught on to this. And they are now using this tactic in very dishonest ways. But they could not do that if the foundation for it was not already laid out by overly sensitive, woke, scoldy lefties. They created the rules, then the right-wingers appropriate the rules and come up with their own little tweaks where they can now spin the victim narrative, where they are now the poor, downtrodden, and everyone could talk bad about us and wham, 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 boo, hoo, hoo. And, now you have these idiots like the critical drinker and whoever else going out there saying these things about how they're the victims because culture doesn't appreciate them anymore, and men are treated so poorly in cinema and so poorly in commercials, and white people are being replaced with all these POCs, and boo-hoo, we're the victims, we're losing our culture, we're losing our identity, we're losing our values, etc., etc., etc. Feel bad for us, feel bad for us. We have a grievance, we have a grievance. And I think that there's a lot of conversations that have to happen on this subject. And so I think your glib, dismissive attitude is counterproductive to having those conversations. That's my response.
This is an objectively racist perspective. I imagine the
Objectively racist perspective? No. If I were to say that black people on a fundamental biological level are predisposed towards whining and acting like victims even when they're not, then that would be a fundamentally and objectively racist position. But me saying that black culture is a culture that has embraced a victimhood narrative is not racist. It's not even inaccurate. I mean, I think that there is definitely a lot of that. Now, the question I think you have to ask yourself is it valid? I think in many instances it is valid. It's demonstrable. It's provable. You can look at statistics on black wealth disparity, and you see that they exist. You can look at statistics on, someone applying two equally, qualified candidates applying for a job. One has a black sounding name, one has a white sounding name, and the white person is given preferential treatment in many such instances. You can look at the fact that black people are about 20% more likely to get pulled over by the police than white people. You can look at the fact that more black people are jailed for marijuana per capita, even though more white people smoke marijuana per capita. So there's all sorts of evidence of disparities, discrepancies, unfairnesses that are baked right into the system. Systemic problems do exist. That can be the case, and there can be a victim culture and a victim narrative at the same time. So what does that necessarily entail? What it entails to me is black people who have not personally actually suffered any of the slings and arrows of this stuff basically saying, well, but because I'm black, because my people in general have suffered these issues, I need preferential treatment. I need special treatment. And I think we've all been out there in the world and seen instances where black people were being treated fairly, and yet they played the race card in order to get their way. I was at a fish market in Seattle, and there was a black dude that literally cut the entire line, demanded to be served before everyone else, and when he was refused, he started to scream about racism. And guess what happened? He got his fish right away because they don't want that. They don't want that. So basically what I'm talking about is certain bad actors who belong to a minority group using this victim narrative that exists out there in order to further themselves personally. Like, there is no ideology that isn't going to have exploiters. There is no social convention you can create that you're not going to have narcissistic, megalomaniacal people come in and take advantage of. And I think that you have to like safeguard against that to whatever extent is possible. Because that person, I guarantee you, everybody waiting in that line who saw that happen now, you know, forevermore is going to take those issues less seriously because they saw an open and naked example of that sort of victim capital being abused. A person who is claiming to be a victim so that they can actually exert more power over a situation. And if you think that doesn't happen, then you're not ready for an honest fucking conversation on this issue. You're just not.
TJ would agree with me if he were to hear this coming from Candace Owens. In fact, he made a video responding to Candace Owens recently and didn't hold back, made it very clear that he thought that she was a piece of shit.
Do you honestly think the
That's not Candace Owens. Is that Candace Owens? I don't think that's Candace Owens. I guess they all look the same to you, huh? Edgier than thou.
structure of America is not based on racism?
I do not think the structure of America is based on racism. If it were, there would be no black four-star generals, no black Secretary of States, no black president, no black Supreme Court justices, no major black entertainers, no black scientists.
I don't especially feel the need to argue with or debunk this point.
Why not? It's true. I mean, like, you realize there's a difference between saying there's systemic racism in society and saying that society is based on racism. Like, if she had said systemic racism exists, I would have said yes, but that's not what she said. She said society is based on racism, and my refutation stands. If we're talking about society being based on racism, then yeah, you would see none of those things happen. You would not see, there would not have ever been a black president. There never would have been a black force. There would have never been no black people of note or significance in all of American history, at least according to mainstream history books. In a society that's based on racism, like a Nazi society, right? So I don't think we're based on racism. Do we have problems with it? Yes. Are there systemic issues involving race? Yes. Should those be rectified? Obviously. But we're not based on racism. So, like, pay attention to the wording being used here, because I know where your problem is here. Your problem is that you're not taking what she said literally, and I am. Now, I admit that one of my failings has always been that I take things too literally sometimes. Maybe I should have realized, hey, maybe she's not meant to be taken 100% literally here, but if that's the words you use, that's the words I'm going to respond to. So no, society is not based on racism for the exact reasons I laid out.
Imagine that TJ would agree that this is a stupid and racist opinion, that by making up a fake version of systemic racism with no basis in data.
She didn't say systemic racism. She said society based on racism. Based on racism and systemic racism are not the same thing. I'm not going to treat them like they are.
He's just making a racist out of himself. And it's freaking annoying because it really genuinely seems like his perspectives are improved and are more reasoned now than they.
See, like I told you, no. If you don't like what I said then, I'm still saying it now. I'm defending it to this day. I'm trying to provide more context so maybe you understand where I was coming from a little better, which is, I think if I had a serious failing at that time, it was that I didn't realize how much context I needed to provide for some people. But that's why I always welcome people to bring forth some kind of questioning on this, because then I can respond to it. That's one of the reasons I like doing these with a live chat, so that I can occasionally visit the chat, talk with them, maybe even occasionally, like I did earlier, bring someone on so they can disagree with me. Now, granted, I didn't listen to that guy for very long, but I let him have 3 long, uninterrupted tangents on the show. And he said his piece, and I said mine, and I feel like we got to the point where there was nothing left to say, and I let people decide at that point. Just because I put a crown on my head and call myself the king doesn't mean I'm looking for everybody to agree with me 100%, because I don't agree with me 100%. Right? Like, a lot of things I say, I'm putting out feelers. I'm trying out ideas. I'm trying to see what's true and what's not by exploring this space in real time. And by being open to transformation, by being open to change. And, you know, a lot of people view that as maybe like wishy-washy or something. But to me, I think it's fundamental for honest discourse. And there's nothing more valuable in a world full of dishonest bullshit than honest goddamn discourse, right? Isn't that the most important thing in the whole goddamn world at this point, is that people can actually communicate with each other effectively? Guess what? It starts with listening. It doesn't start with, I can say whatever I want, because I can say whatever I want doesn't mean anything if everyone's minds and ears are closed at all times. A society that truly embraces free speech would also embrace listening to each other, hearing the other person out, and not immediately like, I don't like it, you're canceled. I don't like it, you're racist. I don't like it, you're nasty. I don't like it, you're bad. I mean, if someone over the course of time, you realize like this is an overarching facet of this person's personality, but to like cherry pick, you said the bad, you are bad. It's just so empty. It's so dismissive. It's so just like, conversation isn't possible. I dismiss it.
They were at the time, but like he continues to pretend like it was all okay, or was all an acceptable form of discourse, and it
wasn't an acceptable form of discourse. Okay, well, I'll tell you where I stand on that. As far as I'm concerned, the only form of discourse that's not acceptable is lies. Whatever opinion you have, okay. I demand an explanation for it. I demand reasons why you feel that way, but I am not willing to say that any opinion should be forbidden. What I am against is lies. I am against someone taking the truth and willfully ignoring it, distorting it, whatever. And I realize people make mistakes, but if someone's called out on a lie and they refuse to back down, that's to me when they've crossed the fucking line. That's to me when they've done the bad. That's to me when I start to write them off. But until that point, I'm willing to listen.
It wasn't. He said dumb stuff. He responded to dumb people sometimes, sure. And then he said incredibly unintelligent, unreasonable things in response to them. But beyond that, he made aggressive accusations about the people that he was responding to. That
was it really? I mean, like, have you shown an example of an aggressive accusation? You showed that I made a mistake, maybe. Somewhat of a mistake when I didn't credit Anita one more tick on the chart of completed videos for her video that I was responding to, the positive female characters. But like, once again, her own framing, she didn't say like, here's the latest in my series of tropes versus women in video games. She said, here's the beginning of my new series, positive female characters, right? So, okay, yeah, I mean, like her own framing kind of misled me on that one. But yeah, I'll admit that I probably should have like looked a little closer and oh yeah, you know what? Maybe this does count towards that. All right, but was that really like an aggressive, hate-filled opinion to be like, you didn't even do what you'd said you were gonna do? You've only done 3. Oh no, I'm sorry, she did 4. Whoops. Like, is that really like, oh, some grave sort of like, oh no, you really spewed vitriol her way with that one? Like, really? Was it that unfair? It was kind of understandable.
May possibly have contributed to a toxic culture and may have potentially contributed to those people getting harassed.
Why isn't racism illegal?
Well, you better thank your lucky stars it isn't, or all of you would be locked up.
Personally, I think...
I mean, if you look at that video, I'll defend that those people were being racist. Like, they literally lump all white people into these groups of, you know, yeah, why do white people do this? Why do white people do that? If I said the exact same things about black people, you know... like, it would be racist. I don't buy into this. I'm sorry. I don't, to this day, I don't cotton to this idea of racism where it's like, oh, you know, people are going to jump on the wording cotton there. So scratch cotton. All right. Never mind that. I don't glom to the idea that, you know, just because like that it has to be like systemic and power has to be involved in all this. Like if you are a person that hates other people just because of their race, you are a racist. That's my definition of racism. It's not power plus privilege time. No, it's, do you hate other races? I do. You're a racist. To me, that's a simpler, easier definition. Now, if you want to come up with a new term that describes when powerful people are racist, then you go ahead and come up with that. But I'm going to continue using the definition of racism where if you hate people of other races or think you're superior because of your race or whatever, that's racism to me.
The way that TJ treated people in his videos is enough for him to say, hey, sorry, I was an asshole to you far beyond what you deserved. This doesn't require taking back every word ever said, but it does require you to realize that someone like Milo Stewart made silly and sometimes imperfect explainer videos. They did nothing to deserve being called a bigot or some of the other disgusting things that TJ said about them in videos such as transgender bigots hate speech. Don't want to play those bits here, but a good timestamp to check out in that video might be 4 minutes and 55 seconds.
All right, so for some reason, not going to play the clip you're referencing. I don't know why you would avoid playing a clip you want to discuss. I mean, I guess you're going to say, like, you don't want to show it because it's, like, offensive, but isn't directing people to go watch it on my channel where I get a little added viewpoint? Like, isn't that worse? Like, you're basically, I'm not going to show it to you here, so you got to go watch it there on his channel where you give him a view, right? Like, does that make sense? Especially if it's a video you hate, why are you directing people to it? Shouldn't you just show them the offending bit there so that they don't have to go watch it on my own channel? Like, wouldn't that make more sense?
Even so, what's infinitely more important is what people were inspired to do because of TJ's behavior. We can probably all agree that on average, fans of a content creator are going to be a bit less reserved and a bit more excessive than the content creator themselves.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Why would it be that, I mean, shouldn't that be the other way around? Like, if you were just like thinking about it logically, why wouldn't it be that the content creator, why would the content creator be less extreme than the people following them? Shouldn't they be the most extreme, the most animated, the most like powerful advocate of the position they're taking? So why isn't that the case? And here's why. It's because the content creator, more often than not, is more influenced by the audience than the audience is by the content creator. I mean, because if you think about it, if you're a content creator and your audience tells you to fuck off, you're fucked. You're in a bad situation. If you're an audience and your content creator doesn't like you, whatever, that doesn't stop you. You know, there's plenty of content creators out there that are like, yeah, audience, I hate them all. He's, you know, lovably cranky, you know, whatever the hell. Like, that doesn't do shit. But if your audience turns on you, oh, shit. So content creators are terrified of their audience. It's a hostage situation in a lot of ways. There's so many content creators out there. The second they step their toe out of line, I mean, I think that's really the secret behind the radicalization of so many people. You know, why are so many of these content creators that used to be in this, like, I mean, like, anti-SJW videos, because of me, were an outcropping of atheism videos. And most people who were in the atheist space were, like, pretty liberal, pretty lefty. There was a few conservatives in there, but, like, most people were pretty progressive. And then the anti-SJW content sprung out of that. And then a bunch of right-wingers jumped onto that. And then all of the content creators that formerly were pretty progressive, a bunch of them started to turn more right-wing. Why is that? Because they started to notice their audience is more right-wing. And they got addicted to that big money rolling in. And so those content creators changed their tune based on the audience. They started to say things to appeal to this new audience that they were already organically attracting. So basically, you make a bunch of videos, feminism, man, these people are whiners. And then a bunch of right-wingers are like, yeah, all them liberals and lefties are like that. And you start seeing that, and you start seeing money roll in, and you start to think to yourself, ooh, what if I start making talking points to appeal to those people? And so you start to do more and more right-wing rhetoric, and before you know it, you got yourself a right-wing audience, and before you know it, you're a right-winger. Even if you didn't start out that way. And why? Because the audience dragged you to it. Because you made content that incidentally appealed to them, and then you became reliant on them, and then you became afraid to defy them. This is called the Sargon phenomenon, in my opinion, because I think that's exactly what happened to that guy. Because that dude used to be basically politically on par with a Kyle Kalinske. And now he's freaking, I mean, you know what he is now. And how did he get there? Dragged there by a right-wing audience. Dragged there by a right-wing audience because he made videos that incidentally appealed to some right-wingers on one subject, And then he realized the more I say that pleases these people, the more they like to give me money, the more they turn up to watch my content because they love hearing their stupid, idiotic, brain-dead opinions from the mouth of a fucking British dude who sounds thoughtful and sounds intelligent. Oh, yes, we must do this thing and that thing, and oh, you're so right, American redneck imbecile. All of your opinions are correct. And they love it, and they eat it up. And that content creator, they love that audience because that audience is buttering their bread. So that's why I think this thing gets turned around all the damn time. People are always talking about these influencers. They're not influencers. They're the ultimate influenced. That's what they are. They are the ultimate example of, I think it was like Lao Tzu or Sun Tzu who said, if you want to lead the people, walk behind them. Because the people who masquerade as leaders in this space are really just followers of a crowd. And that's important to recognize. It's important to recognize the truth of this relationship. It's important to recognize that every single content creator on this platform is terrified of pissing off their mercurial audience. Their fickle, mercurial, stab you in the back in a fucking second audience. The audience holds the power. If you don't like the discourse, don't look to the content creators. They're mostly just chumps. Look to the fucking audience. Ask yourself, what's wrong with these people that this is what they want to hear? What's wrong with these people that they would listen to this rhetoric? Because do you think for a fucking second, if every member of Ben Shapiro's audience, if every member of Steven Crowder's audience, if every member of Candace Owens' audience suddenly changed their fucking minds about any topic under the sun that was important, do you not think that all of these right-wing grifters would be parroting that talking point in a second? Of course they would. How many times have we seen a content creator veer away from their usual rhetoric and take an unexpected position on something? What happens in those instances? What happens when that happens, guys? Do all of a sudden you see all that content creator's audience going, he's right. Yes, he speaks the truth. No. What you see is they rebel. I don't like this. I liked some other things you said, but I don't like this. And then it gets to the point where either the content creator never talks about that subject again, or they change, they see the light. Oh, I've broadened my horizons on that one. You know what really just happened? They didn't broaden their horizons. They got bullied into assent. No matter how big the content creator is, their livelihood is in your hands. You hold their future. You hold their fate. And so if you say this, I'm going to leave, their ears perk up and they say, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's be reasonable here. I think what I was really saying was this other thing that is way more agreeable to you, master. So quit putting the fucking cart before the horse on this one. If there's anything that drives me nuts, it's this fucking idea that these content creators are brainwashing these people. It's the other way around, guys. How many fucking times do I have to say it? How many times do I have to fucking explain it? It's the truth. The people are the problem. The audience is not an audience. It's a fucking menagerie of puppet masters. And that's why I always let my audience know, at the end of the day, yeah, I like you guys. In fact, I love you guys. But at the end of the day, you try to control me, fuck you. Eat my asshole. Fuck off. Not your purview. I would rather 3 people listen to my honest words than pander to an audience of 50 fucking trillion. Find a motherfucker realer than that. I dare you. Okay.
So it's worth considering the things TJ said and acknowledge the possibility that maybe others replicated that behavior. In 2012, TJ was criticized for genuinely horrific comments he made to a rape victim on Reddit. Before going any further, I understand the phenomenon that led to such comments. In fact, it's the basis for my channel name, although no, I will not elaborate on that at this time. I understand why his language got so out of hand. There is a culture on the internet, especially back then, that rewarded consistently one-upping each other in terms of shock value and finding the most vile and cruel things to say in an effort to constantly be as polarizing as possible. Nonetheless, this behavior is horrendous. TJ, of course, apologized for what was said in a way that was not especially satisfying, but nonetheless at least recognized that what he said was wrong. The problem is...
All right. How many times? How many times we got to bring up this chestnut? Okay. Yeah, a million years ago, I was in a flame war on Reddit with a bunch of feminists, and they were sitting there egging me on and egging me on and egging me on to trying to get me to say the most horrible thing possible, because they're saying horrible things. But of course, the horrible things they say, that's all fine. That's under the radar. Who cares? Don't be a baby. But I say some horrible things back, and oh no, I'm the bad guy. I'm the devil. I'm the villain. You know what? I apologize for apologizing. How do you like that? I don't care. All right? Some whiner claimed on the internet that they were some kind of rape victim to win an argument against me. Now, who the hell in the middle of a flame war with somebody else brings up, I was raped, I'm a victim of sexual violence, while we're flaming each other? Of course they're only bringing that up because they want me to say something about it. So if anything, I apologize for being an idiot that played right into their hands. And by the way, people always want to act like it's a woman that said that this happened to. It wasn't. It was a dude. It was a dude that got raped. You know who one of the few people who's actually out there advocating for raped men, who's actually made videos about that subject? Me. You know how many other people give a shit? Fucking not many. Not a whole lot. One of the few channels on this entire platform that's actually uploaded videos about male victims. You're looking at him. But you know what? Because I said some mean things to somebody in a flame war 20 years ago, 10 years ago probably, it's like, oh, that's going to be brought up and brought up and brought up, even though it's been discussed to death, apologized for a million times. You think it's just like it's like a never-ending source of power. Oh yeah, I'm going to bring it up again. That'll beat him. It didn't kill me then. It ain't going to kill me now. It's just like some mean shit I said on the internet. And I'm tired of acting like it's something that needs to be like apologized for or hands wrung over. You know what? If you're a real victim and something I said caused any hurt to you whatsoever, I apologize, because it was never my intention. I never meant to hurt anybody other than the person I was directing that vitriol towards. All right? But I don't apologize to that person. They knew they were in a flame war. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were saying equally mean shit. Their screen name was "I come when I kill men." That was the screen name of this fucking person that everyone's like, no, don't be mean to "I come when I kill men." Don't be mean to them. Like, that person wasn't a fucking edgelord. That person didn't know what they were doing. Shut up. Like, give me a fucking break on that. And even if they did, it was apologized for at the time. You could decide whether or not you want to still watch me. Just go, there's a video on my channel. It's called The Amazing Atheist and Rape. Go watch it. Go hear my full opinions on it. Decide for yourself. I don't care.
You kind of can't unring that bell. Once you as a content creator have behaved in such a manner, your fans take that as license to do it on your behalf. Folks like Anita Sarkeesian have claimed that they got violent threats.
I don't think anybody on the internet needs my permission to go have a fucking flame war with somebody, all right? And once again, you're putting the cart before the horse on this one. They have more influence on me than I do on them, or they used to.
Demands for suicide, and, you know, the other kind of threat that women get online as a result of how TJ covered them. And it's not hard to see why. When you've established this precedent of absolutely no boundaries in terms of the language that you use to refer to people, your followers are going to take it upon themselves to keep doing that work. Many of them are going to...
No one on my behalf has gone to an Anita Sarkeesian video and said anything nightmarishly horrible to her, okay? And if they did, I disavow that. But if they simply made cogent, reasonable criticisms of her content, I don't apologize for that at all. If anyone said they want to hurt Anita Sarkeesian, if anyone said they wanted to do sexual violence against Anita Sarkeesian, Disavow them. Disavow that comment anyway. Think they should apologize. But I never did that. I never told anyone to do that. So I don't really understand the idea here that because I said something that crossed the line in a Reddit conversation, that sends the signal that that's okay for my audience to do in any other situation, even one that's not even remotely equivalent to that. No, if you're in a flame war with somebody and they're saying horrible, hurtful things, you are allowed to say horrible, hurtful things back. That's my opinion. If you have a political disagreement with somebody, I guess it depends on the nature of the disagreement. If they say that trans people should be genocided and you disagree with that, feel free to say whatever the hell you want about that piece of shit. Yeah, I totally encourage you to do it. I encourage you to be as mean and hateful as possible towards people who like promote genocidal rhetoric. Okay? But like the point I guess I'm driving at here is that it's highly situational. Anita Sarkeesian, even though I think she's dishonest and a scammer, never said or did anything that I think warrants a hair on her head to be harmed. And I don't think I ever sent anybody a message to the contrary. If you can find anything I ever said in any of my video responses to Anita Sarkeesian that even vaguely sounds like a call for violence, I will immediately take that video down. Because I'm pretty confident there is no such instance. And I'm pretty confident that if there was, it'd be in this video.
Assume that you only apologize to save face and haven't actually changed your thinking on the matter. TJ, when Anita, Milo, Steve, Francesca, etc. get violent threats, you hold responsibility. Yes, the people making the threats are culpable for their behavior, but they never would have done what they did unless you set a precedent for such threats being at least acceptable.
No, I totally do not buy that premise. I've already explained why. That's such a ridiculous, absurd standard. So your argument is, TJ, during a flame war on Reddit, you said some things that were really bad. Therefore, you believe that all of your opponents in any sphere should be subject to those comments unprovoked. That does not track. That is not logical. That is not reasonable. That is, there's no way you could possibly deduce that that has happened. You have basically made up a guy to be mad at and then got mad at him. That's what's happened here.
In discourse, then called attention to these individuals for being supposedly terrible people, which signals to your audience that they deserve it. You could have worked to mitigate this. You could have consistently continued to uphold that these people do not deserve harassment and that you are not interested in cultivating a community that treats...
I mean, I don't... Look, the idea that you had to preface videos with do not harass people in the past, that was not really a thing. That was not a standard. Don't go trying to hold me to a standard that didn't exist at the time, okay? I'm sorry that it didn't occur to me to make that clear. I didn't realize that it was necessary. I'm still not sure that it is. But just to make it clear, I don't support anybody being harassed unless they are a genocidal lunatic.
People
then I kind of do.
The way they did. But you seem to prefer to wash your hands of it rather than get over yourself and realize you did a bad thing. As I said, I understand that you weren't thinking about this in 2014, but it's 2023 now. You should be able to look back and realize that you hurt people, not just their triggered libcuck feelings. You actively contributed to creating a culture that made these people fear for their safety. That warrants an apology. I could probably go...
No, because I don't accept the premise. Here's my standard of evidence. Go through the videos that I made to Anita Sarkeesian. Go through the videos that I made to Steve Shives. Go to the videos I made to anybody. And find me the part where you feel like I crossed the line in those videos. And then we can talk about that. But you can't take one statement made in a very different context on a very different platform and then say, because you said that thing to that person, that means you endorse that sort of thing being said to anyone you dislike. Because I think that's a total stretch and a pretty absurd sort of idea to put forth. And you'd have to demonstrate human psychology even works like that.
Go a bit more in depth on some specific examples, but I don't really think that that's essential to this. If you're not familiar with The Amazing Atheist or his content or whatever, then this video isn't really for you. This is mostly for people.
I'm passingly familiar.
People who have seen this stuff or know that it exists. If you were watching TJ in 2015, you know what I'm talking about, and I feel like that's good enough for now. So, I think we've established that TJ made unwarranted accusations against people and said and did stuff he ought to correct or regret, regardless of whether he keeps himself up at night self-flagellating. But still, I think it's important.
Yeah, no, all of that's like a gross hyperbolic exaggeration. I think like, you know, I mean, you've you've set a basis for that. I mean, I'm not going to say that your video is totally bereft of any argumentation. I will give you that. I'll give you credit where credit is due. You try to put forth an argument, but you basically put forth a pretty weak sauce argument and then conclude it with some very strongly worded conclusions. And I think that your summarization of what you've just laid out, it falls very short. Like you're basically like acting like you just had like a home run when you kind of hit like a ground ball. You know what I mean?
Important to explain why this is so frustrating to me. If this were someone like Sargon of Akkad or Dr. Shame, I probably wouldn't be talking about him like this. I get the impression that TJ isn't an unabashedly evil person, but that doesn't change the fact.
Don't be so sure.
That he did a load of harm to the YouTube space. I don't really care whether he cries himself to sleep over it. It would just be nice to get some level of, yeah, I perpetuated a lot of toxic bullshit, and it's now important that I counteract it. Not just...
Yeah, I mean, I think I've done that. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think that there were some things I said that perpetuated toxic bullshit. Not because I was wrong, but because I insufficiently provided explanation and context for why I felt the way I did. But I think a lot of the ball is also in the court of the people that refuse to engage in honest conversation. Because, you know, really, a lot of this stuff I got set straight on the minute that I sat down and had a conversation with anybody that was on the left. It's like, oh yeah, you're right about that. All it took was like somebody to actually have a real conversation with me. But for years, no one wanted to do that. They just wanted to be like, you said bad things, so you're dismissed. It's like, okay, well, what if we actually tried to communicate? What if we had a back and forth discussion and dialogue on this? They don't want that. They want to condemn people. They want to say, oh no, you're bad. You're naughty. You said the wrong thing. You know, you didn't think the way I think, so therefore bad. And I get it. There's people out there that aren't worth listening to, but I was never one of those. I feel like I was always open, honest, willing to compromise, you know, and I mean, like, look, not as much as I am now. I've learned some things since then. And so maybe some of the stuff I said before was like overly simplified, but like, I feel like most of it's defensible and I know exactly where it comes from. And if there's stuff I said that isn't defensible, like present it to me. Because I feel like with the stuff you've given me here, I feel like I've provided pretty good explanations for all of it. And I don't feel like I'm wrong about the stuff I've said. But like I also said, willing to have a dialogue, willing to engage, willing to discuss, willing to change my mind. Nothing wrong with that.
Other people reappropriated the things I said. No, I hold culpability for this explicitly. I don't care whether he gives people money, but there
I mean, that would be a lie.
a few basic steps he ought to take, not because he's a sinner in need of forgiveness, but because he has the capacity to do great good or great harm. 1, apologize to the people who were harmed by your actions. I'm not of the opinion that you need to take back every single disagreement you had, but apologize for the objectively wrong accusations you made and for directly giving others license to send death threats to them.
Yeah, I didn't do those things, so I'm not going to apologize for something that, once again, you've not made that case.
Ought to do this regardless of whether they take back things you consider to be unfair about yourself. 2nd, unlist most of the old stuff and put it on a playlist. You mentioned this as a possible solution in your video, and that is, as far as I can tell, the absolute best solution. No need to rewrite history, but also no pushing people into harmful culture war bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that before. So there are some things I've made that I look at and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this. And so, you know, there's been thoughts about, do I take it down so it can't do any more harm? Do I leave it up because I don't want to deny my history? Do I put it on a playlist so that you can only watch it if you go through sort of like a context barrier? I don't know. I haven't really decided on that.
If there any person watching this video has any interest in watching TJ Kirk ever again, if they did to begin with, he's not leaving the internet anytime soon. And it would be genuinely nice if he made...
I wish I fucking could. I wish I could just write books. Can you guys, like, please, when Sexbot Uprising comes out, I'll still do streams for you guys, but I don't want to be reliant on this money. I want to be a writer. I want to write books and not have to like dip my toe in this shit on a daily basis. Could I do that? Could that happen?
certain that his platform consistently made the world better rather than worse. Most of his new content, I think, is fairly good, but we need to leave 2016 behind if we want to do this right. TJ's right in saying that he's a unique voice on this platform and that he has an interesting personality that most other people don't replicate, and I don't expect any sort of massive change to that personality. And to some degree, I think that might even be a good thing. But there's a line between maintaining your persona and keeping consistent and just actively allowing yourself to do bad. I think this is unabashedly in the latter category. Anyhow, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, clarifications, etc., feel free to let me know in the comments. The direction of this video changed a lot, and so I'm worried that we might be in a little bit of like a Suicide Squad sort of situation where it feels like two videos grappling with each other. Hopefully that's not how it came out, but I guess we'll see. And yeah, I appreciate the liking of this video. I
didn't really get that impression at all. No, the impression I got was that you've taken some things that I feel like you found like a pretty weak sort of like, yeah, I guess you were kind of wrong on one thing in this video, and then you basically extrapolated that to like rampant dishonesty. One example of TJ getting something wrong, and it's understandable, but I've decided this is indicative of massive and pervasive intellectual dishonesty on his part, and that's what's extrapolated. And then you found some things that like, oh, this doesn't sound good or whatever the hell, and you said like, oh, nope, you said the bad. And then you found like the worst thing I ever said to anybody online on Reddit during a flame war to a fucking user called I Come When I Kill Men. And you said like, oh, wow, if he would be this mean to this person in this context, then surely he would be just as vulgar and vile to any of his political opponents. And that's like par for the course, his kind of thing that he says. Like, seems kind of weird to extrapolate, but hey, like, I don't know. It seems like you found several molehills and attempted to make them into mountains. Nonetheless, I would say that you're probably among the better of my critics because you at least did make actual arguments. They were defeatable, and I feel like I have pretty thoroughly defeated them, but at least they were arguments. So good for you on that. Anyway.